So when people are looking to sell their houses, they think, should I sell to an investor or an iBuyer? Could I get more money that way? I don't know how that works. And they have lots of questions. So today we're going to go over the pros and cons of selling to an investor / iBuyer. What's up, everybody? Mark Cannon, your local realtor here in the Phoenix area. If you find value in these videos, share it with friends, like the videos, I'd appreciate it, but let's get right into it. So today we're talking through pros and cons of an iBuyer or a investor buying your home if you're looking to sell it, right? And a lot of people don't think of this option because most people use a real estate agent. And listen, I am a real estate agent, so I'll be honest, yes, obviously I think you should sell with a real estate agent, but I think there are situations where people could use an iBuyer / investor and it would benefit them more than using a real estate agent. Now, that is not the scenario most of the time, but I think there are certain situations. And so just to give you a little background, what is an iBuyer and investor, right? So just an investor, and we'll talk through some different types here in a second. I'm going to do a screencast, show you an article, talks about a lot of this stuff. But like an iBuyer, for instance, is someone like Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow did it for a while until they went bankrupt because they lost too much money. I think it was in 2021, they lost, what was it, like $1 billion in 1 year. Insane. But anyway, so it's one of those that, an iBuyer is someone like that online who's going to buy your house. And then a typical investor would be, there's some different types. So we'll talk through that. But the biggest thing is typically, in rule of thumb, is if you're going to sell to an investor, an iBuyer, you're not going to make market value. Plain and simple. You're just not. So there are some rules of thumb. The article will talk about this. They usually try to offer around 70%. Some may offer higher than that of the value, but whenever I have listings, I get investor offers all the time. Usually I'll get 2 or 3 right up front, and they're for about 60 to 70% of the value. And we're like, no thanks, we're good. But they do it every time because they don't care. They just generate them, send them out. So we'll go through this article. So let me move my screen real quick. All right, so this is from HomeLight. This is a website that they're also they have some different programs and stuff, but they put out some interesting articles sometimes. So I thought this was interesting. So 4 different types of investors. So just walk through them real quick. There's buy and hold. So obviously that's people that are going to make them rentals, whether it be long-term, short-term, whatever. You have your house flippers. They're going to come in, and typically those are houses that need a good amount of work, and they're going to, change a bunch of things, or in some scenarios, if they're not very good flippers, they'll change like 1 or 2 things. It's like, okay, you're not going to make a ton of money that way. There's wholesalers, which they literally will just churn out offers a ton, and they try to do in volume. They just try to do a lot of volume. Then there's the iBuyers, which we talked about. So they go over some pros and cons, and I think their pros and cons are pretty good. Because it's one of those that, again, I think there are certain situations. Like I've had people that have gone to iBuyers, and I thought it was appropriate because the biggest thing that the iBuyers give you is flexibility. Like, yes, you may not make the full 100% of your value. Maybe you'll make 80% or something with some of these iBuyers. But you could, I know like some people sold to OfferPad, and they were able to live in their house for 6 months till they found a new house. That's a long time. That's pretty good. So it varies on what they offer, depending on what time of year and what they're doing. So, there can be some situations where it does make sense for people. So some of the pros they go over is, hassle-free. It's true. They're cash transactions typically, so it's pretty easy. No financing delays. You typically don't ask for repairs. Now, the iBuyers will tend to ask for repairs, or instead of repairs, I guess I should say they ask for money. So they say, a flipper will do this too, where they'll give you a price, and then when they start going through the house, they go, well, $500 for this and $1,000 for this, and they start nickel and diming you. The iBuyers especially do this, so they will nickel and dime you after they give you the price, and then it comes down, and then there's fees, and so it's not always what you think it is. When it comes to like a wholesaler or something, they typically offer you a price, right? So that's not typically the same with a wholesaler, but for the iBuyers, the flippers, they typically will kind of nickel and dime you. But anyway, so no repairs, renovations, typically with an investor, and greater flexibility. Like I said, a lot of times they'll give you as much time as you need to get out of the house, right? They'll say, hey, listen, we can close in 2 weeks, but we'll give you 3 months to get out or a month to get out or whatever. Every single one's different. So those are some good pros and might meet certain people's needs. But then let's go to some of the cons, right? Cons are you're likely not getting as much for your home. And that is across the board. You're not going to get market value. So like if I think your house can sell for $500,000 right now in this market, they're not going to offer near that, right? Now, some of the iBuyers might get, 470-ish, somewhere in that realm. But, and it can vary again. But it's just one of those that they're not going to give you the full value at all. You may not know who the buyer is. A lot of people don't care about that as much anymore, but some people do. And it matters of like, hey, that's just a company name. Who's actually buying it? You don't know. Foreign investors can take longer. If there's someone from another country is trying to buy something, it can extend the process. There's a lot more paperwork, complications, stuff like that. And not all investors are reputable. And that's true because the reality is there can be scams out there, especially if you're not using a real estate agent to talk to these people. There might be people trying to come and, get something done. And that is scary because it's a matter of people are trying to get you out of your house in a fraudulent way. And so obviously, if you're not experienced with this stuff, I would tell you to use a real estate agent to talk to an investor. But it's one of those that typically with investors, it has to be the right situation for you. Most people are not going to sell to an investor. But let's say it's just a dump or something. Yeah, maybe you should sell it to an investor or a flipper or something like that. But if it's a normal house that you've been living in and everything like that, you're probably going to use a real estate agent. I would love to be that real estate agent. I would love to talk with you. If you have questions about any of this, or maybe someone's approached you, let me know. I would love to have that conversation with you. My information's below. I'm here to be a resource and help however I can. All right. It's about what is best for you, not for me or anyone else. It's about you. Guys, you've been listening to The Real.